What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. I really do. I want to thank my new subscribers for coming over, joining the channel. Hopefully, you stick around. We have a really, really great community here. A lot of very intelligent people that provide a lot of good information. Yeah, it's just probably one of the best communities. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating here on YouTube. I want to apologize on behalf of YouTube for censoring my work once again. 44-minute video that I spent hours on, really, with the information. And, well, I mean, if you think the months, really. But I'm going to redo it in a semi-different fashion and try to get it out there. It's always those key ones that just for some reason just don't want to work right. And I'm very computer literate. I am. I don't need to go on about what I do, but I know a thing or two about computers and how programs and apps and things like that works. And I've dotted my I's, crossed my T's, and no matter what I did, it just kept failing to load, or my screen recorders weren't working. And then when it did load, it had no sound. And it's the same programs I've been using for years. For years. I want to start off with this video of this lovely lady on your screen here. Probably not even human, to be honest. But second wave, right? So before we jump into, because we are right there on the doorstep, we are kicking it in as I speak of the second wave. We've been talking about it for 7-8 months, even while the first wave was in its climax. We were talking about second waves, possibly a third, however many it takes for them to exert complete totalitarian control over as many people as they possibly can. And fear is the vehicle in which they intend on achieving that goal. But they did tell us a thing or two about what their intentions were that they did not execute during the first wave. But they did let us know. And why did they let us know? Well, it was obviously to predictively program, to put in your psyche, to plant the seed that this will be what they will be doing, what they have to do in order to finally defeat this awful pandemic. Sorry about the audio, guys. I had to go old school in order to actually get a video to do what I wanted to do, so my apologies ahead of time.
It reminds me of the very first broadcast I made in 1940, helped by my sister. We as children spoke from here at Windsor to children who had been evacuated from their homes and sent away for their own safety. Today, once again, many will feel a painful sense of separation from their loved ones. But now as then, we know deep down that it is the right thing to do.
Feel painful. So it's the right thing to do that your kids are being separated from you. Now that's what was said during the first wave. People were like, oh, what are they going to do? They're going to go door to door? They're going to start quarantining people, removing? Because also, if you remember what the World Health Organization had said, well, we'll get to it. I have it up as well. It really coincides with what she had said, and we never really seen much of it, right? Even the governor, maybe mayor of California, slipped up and said basically the same thing through the contact tracing, going door to door, and then forcibly removing people if necessary. All of those things are what we have to look forward to come late November, December, January. It's going to get bad. And on top of all of that, not just this scam, we have the elections, the divide, everything else that they are throwing at us. They are doing as much as they can. I akin it to the Blitzkrieg. Right? During the war, it was a military tactic where you bring everything, you bring all you got all at once, unexpectedly. So they don't even have a chance, right? You don't just come up and drop this on, no, you bring it all. You do everything all at once, and you keep it coming until you exhaust your enemy and defeat them. And that's what's being done to us on a massive scale, on a global scale. And here we are entering the second wave. We're on the doorstep. 6 New York City neighborhoods see spike in COVID-19 cases as fears of second wave mount, right? They used New York City during the first wave as kind of like the precedent, right? As the example. So if New York City's starting to see cases again, well, must be a second wave. I'm going to go through a little bit of a couple of these just to see some of the talking points that these psychopaths are trying to persuade us of. In an area the city's health department is calling the Ocean Parkway cluster, the positivity rate has climbed to nearly 5%, and when combined with 3 other neighborhoods, the area is responsible for 1 in 5 COVID cases citywide. Oh, what the heck? Let's take a listen to what this douchebag has to say.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Natalie Pasquarella. Chuck has the night off. The U.S. has reached a grim milestone in the COVID-19 pandemic. We're talking about more than 200,000 Americans who've died because of this virus. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. New York added 5 states. Take a look to the travel advisory list today. Visitors from Arizona, Minnesota, Nevada, Rhode Island.
Remember the travel advisory thing that I've seen them starting to use more and more of, or like the charts of how it's spreading. It reminds me of 9/11 and how they had the color-coded graph of how afraid we should be that there's an imminent terrorist attack. They would concoct some story off in Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden would make some stupid-ass video. And then, dun dun dun, the threat level would be raised. It'd be like dark orange, almost red, right at the top. Everybody would be, oh my God. But nothing happened, right? The only thing that happened was them doing exactly what I just said. That would scare everybody. But it worked. It was very effective. And here we see the same type of thing being done with all these travel advisory graphs and these maps and the charts, etc., etc.
Rhode Island and Wyoming have to quarantine now for 14 days. That brings the number of restricted states to 33 and 2 U.S. territories. And we have new concerns here in the city. 6 neighborhoods seeing a surge in COVID cases. We want to get out to News 4's Andrew Siff, who is live for us in Kew Gardens with the latest. Andrew.
Natalie, schools like the one behind me now face an extra layer of challenges. They're already getting safety protocols in place. And now what they've got to do is worry about the increase that you just talked about, an increase in COVID cases.
Garbage. Don't want to hear anymore. Increase in COVID cases, right? Well, of course it's going to coincide with children going back to school. They haven't really used this one. I mean, yeah, they kind of did a little bit, but they're not inundating us with that propaganda as of yet, as far as the school, and they will, mark my words, the school children are really spreading this virus. As this thickens, as it develops, this second wave, it will largely come down to the schools because, as I'm going to show you, they are definitely going to mandate COVID-19 shots, the vaccine, to school children in order to get them back to school. This will probably be shortly after the second lockdown that many will experience, but I don't know if they're going to do it. I'm not sure yet if they're going to do it as a nation again, or they're just going to start quarantining certain areas like buildings, right? Because if it's not you don't really care. It's going to be here and there. And it's interesting to me. I was talking about whack-a-mole because to me that was the only thing that I could think of that would describe how they were going to go about executing this, as well as what their response would be to it. And it just reminded me of whack-a-mole. And then 5.5 months later, I see Fauci, just recently, talking about the exact same thing. Well, what I think is going to happen, talking about the second wave, it's really going to be an issue of whack-a-mole. Like, damn, Fauci, did you watch my video? All right, guys, on to the next. Parents are wary of giving kids a COVID-19 vaccine. What if schools require it? What if schools require it? Well, if you're following my channel, I'm pretty sure, at least I would wager, on the odds that it's a safe bet to say you probably wouldn't send your kids to school. But then it's going to be the workplace, the major corporations, right? That's why it's a part of the reason, anyway, they're getting rid of all these small businesses. Any business that's not one of the large, major, global corporations, well, you got to go. Because if you're a Walmart or a McDonald's, all of the major global brands out there, companies, well, you might not force your employees to give a vaccine. And they need you to do that because they don't want to come right out and say, they very well may, with this Operation Warp Speed. And when you go to the Department of Defense's own website, as I've shown on this channel, the picture they show is a person in military fatigues administering a shot to a civilian. Interesting, right? Because they're like, well, the military is not going to be going door to door and giving people the vaccine. Well, I don't know. I hope not. But might they already be here after the shifty results of the election, right? Because we know that disaster is coming no matter what. No matter which side, no matter what the results are, no matter if they delay it, cancel it, impeach, no matter what the hell happens. It's going to be chaos. We've been seeing how they've been introducing federal agents, the National Guard. Then there was talk, is the National Guard enough? And then we see what's happening, they give you an example, the Breonna Taylor verdict, which we called out right when this happened. But it's easy to predict those things because it's from the same old playbook that they use time and time and time again, right? I'm going to run through this. It's a serious question. It's a lot easier to say, well, that I just won't send my kids, than actually consider the repercussions of doing such. And they know that, but let me go on. Parents are wary of giving kids a COVID-19 vaccine. What if the schools require it? Michelle Vargas of Granite City, Illinois, has always vaccinated her 10-year-old daughter, Madison. They both typically get flu shots, but when a vaccine for the coronavirus eventually comes out, Vargas will not be giving it to her, even if Madison's school district requires it. Right? They're trying to make her seem like an intelligent parent that's questioning we'll get through it. It's very easy to tell the type of narrative they're trying to, feed you very, very lightly, so it's not in your face and you can call it out. They're very good at what they do. There is no way in hell I would be playing politics with my daughter's health and safety, said Vargas, 36, an online fitness instructor. Fitness instructor considered worried about people's health, right? If the public schools Madison attends and loves says the vaccine is mandatory, we would find other options, she said. As pharmaceutical companies race to manufacture a COVID-19 vaccine, many people are wary of a shot that is working its way through the approval process at record speeds during a highly politicized pandemic. While some professors could require employees to get the vaccine, experts say schools almost certainly will require students to. almost certainly to require students to, potentially setting the stage for a showdown between reluctant parents and education officials. We want to make sure kids return to in-person learning as quickly as possible, right? Because they're going to drag this out. The schools that did reopen, if they reopened in full, because a lot of schools, for instance, my daughter, she only goes twice a week, and the rest is at home. There are schools that sent all the kids back, but those schools, I've shown before, they're quarantining all these children. Going to school, bam, coming home, quarantine. Can't go nowhere. Well, what about, obviously, the kid came in contact with the parents, but the parents is allowed to leave? As of the moment. But that's going to be what's coming next. This is going to be a huge issue, and I don't think most people understand that yet. It's going to be a huge issue. It is especially delicate time for parents to hesitate about vaccinating their children. Vaccines have long been a hot button issue, particularly as a small but vociferous, I don't even know what that word means, group has spread false information such as the debunked myth that the measles, mumps, rubella shot causes autism and many other neurological disorders. Some of the things I read are just so nonsensical because people have the ability to access the official sites that carry actual information and have to do it by law. And you could find out the side effects, the things that people complained about. Can't do much about it, right? It's hard to sue a vaccine company like Johnson & Johnson or Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, all of them. As with other vaccines, the decision whether to require one for COVID-19 in schools will be made at the state and school district levels. While all 50 states require student vaccinations, a patchwork of laws allows for parental objections. All states allow for exemptions for children with medical reasons, and 45 states plus Washington, D.C. grant exemptions on the basis of religious objections. That's going to quickly, especially when you see the Pope really going right along with all of this for the Christians that, may be like, well, hey, this seems an awful lot like what was mentioned in Mark or Revelations. The mark of the beast. Yeah, well, I don't know. No need to go through much more of it. But you should be very, very aware that this is something that we're going to be facing relatively soon, within a couple of months for sure. And I was talking about the contact tracing, and I want to also remind people about what this guy said.
Due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some sense.
Okay, so he kind of jumped the gun on this to me. As we'll finish listening to, he says, most of the transmissions are occurring in the household at a family level. Now, this was at the end of the lockdown last year. A lot of students weren't even in school or were just getting out. But now that these schools are basically germ factories, they want you to believe and indeed they somewhat are. But for a virus that, even if it were real by their own numbers, is less severe than the flu. Or right on par with it, depending, because they died with the flu. 95% died with the flu. And only like 200 of those people had actually died with only COVID. The CDC keeps changing things. The World Health Organization keeps changing things. The NHAID and NIH, whatever it is, they keep changing things. It's just constantly, you can't keep up with it. They don't want you to be able to keep up with it. They want to just be able to do it off the cuff and tell you, hey, this is our science. This is the science you need to follow. And any other science, regardless of all the credentials, the accolades, that whatever professional in his field may be saying otherwise, that may be more respected. Don't listen to them, because they're not saying what we're saying. See, we're on your TV. We're on your social media clickbait that you just once in a while want to see what's going on and click it. We are everywhere, and we are the ones that are telling you what you need to believe, and everything else is a conspiracy theory. And conspiracy theories are a part of QAnon, and QAnon is a terrorist. Well, will soon be, but they're quickly becoming a terrorist organization, which we'll see the psyop that occurs with that, I'm sure. I could be wrong, guys, but I don't know. Seems like they would do it.
Census transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
Oh, well, as long as it's a safe and dignified manner, right? Then that goes right along with what Queen Elizabeth was saying. Oh, the separation, we had, but it was for the greater good. So when they come for your children, or your children there's an outbreak, some kid's coughing at school, they test him in one of these 10-minute tests, they find out he has COVID. Everybody, they had a fire drill that day, God forbid, and all the kids were crowded in the hall, and all of a sudden now there's 250, and this is happening all over the country right now. This was happening right at the very beginning of it. I made a video about it. It's called Quarantining School Children en Masse. But it's continually happening. But the one thing they're not doing yet is correlating those quarantined children, the children that need to quarantine for 14 days, with members of the household. Now, it seems to me that you would need some type of contact tracing for that to occur. We haven't heard much about that, but yet hundreds of thousands of contact tracers were hired and trained. Haven't seen one of them. Nobody has, because they haven't really been out yet. They haven't pushed that whole agenda. But it's coming. That's the part where these quarantined facilities that they created right at the onset of this thing, right at the very onset of this thing, back in January, February. And the military facilities that also stepped up to the plate and said, hey, don't worry, if those quarantine facilities become overwhelmed and there's too many people in them, we'll take some. We have room for those. I wonder which people may find themselves in a military base because they tested positive or was in contact with somebody who tested positive, or was in contact with somebody who was in contact with someone. But that's later down the road. At first, it's just going to be the parents, the immediate household, the family, right? The kid comes home, they find out there was an outbreak in school. Here comes the talk, well, there needs to be more contact tracing, because they're going to have the sad stories about, war hero or so-and-so of this died, celebrity died because their child came home with COVID and gave it to the elderly. You're going to see some of those. They're going to try to tug on the heartstrings, try to get people to ask the question, well, why aren't they doing something about it? Problem, reaction, solution, the Galilean dialectic, just a tried and true tactic that they continually use to accomplish their goals, and they're going to do it here as well. Health workers sick with fear at the thought of the second wave. Because it's coming, right? Take the lead from Israel. Israel's already got them in the second lockdown. Just started locking them all down again. But this isn't going to be quite like the first, guys. It may seem that way at first, but as we get a little bit deeper into this second wave, you're going to start seeing things like more and more people getting arrested for not abiding by these ridiculous mandates that are soon becoming law. It's not that they don't have legislation being introduced all the time to make these things into law. They just have to run the course. And they will, and it will. Just like they did with the Patriot Act, the Freedom Act, the National Defense Authorization Act. All of those. It's for your own good, of course. Take away all your freedoms, trace everything that you've done, and if they say either you're sick or they say you need this chemical in your body and we'll inject you, you had better abide. And if not, you need to be taken away and quarantined somewhere for God knows how long. And not only that, but if you're willingly not taking the vaccine or going out or even having a few, because think about what they were trying to drill home during the first wave, right? Not social gatherings, nothing like that. It's got to go away, and this is going to happen again. But this time, they're going to be a little more forceful. And the next time, they're going to be a little bit more forceful. Then we're probably going to get a 2-year break, and they're going to come back with some other damn pandemic. But by then, I'm sure they will have stirred up this war with China that they're so desperately to engage in. The levels of anxiety amongst our staff that we may go back to what we saw in April is beyond anything I have ever experienced in over 30 years in the health service. Yeah, a bunch of nurses dancing around making TikTok videos because the hospitals are more empty than they've ever been. And the reason they were more empty is because, well, A, nobody had COVID and nobody was going to the damn hospitals. Even the ones in New York City. I live in New York. I can tell you right now, I've seen a lot of great footage of people just going into these hospitals that were supposedly like ground zero for the worst atrocities that a pandemic could unleash on society. And we were supposed to see body bags everywhere with people in them, refrigerated trucks at the door. No, they were ghost towns. Because, well, if you did have something wrong, like you twisted your ankle and you thought you needed the ER, you didn't want to go in because, well, I'll rather deal with a twisted ankle or an upset stomach than getting COVID-19. Because really, the most of the people that go to the ER are hypochondriacs anyway. I'm not saying like there's very real reasons to go to the ER, obviously, but there's a lot of people that go in under, and it's not all their fault either. It's just they've been drilled in with all this fear all the time. You have to unplug from that, right? You can't. It is. I mean, obviously, yeah. There's some scary situations, and this is one of the most important times of history. It really dictates how our future will unfold from here, and whether or not we will be a free society, whether or not we will allow a few very, very powerful people to control everything about our lives. The food we eat, the people we associate with, the jobs we work, where we live, how we live, what we believe, everything. They want complete control. We're not going to give it to them. It's not going to happen. They jumped the gun. If they would have waited another 20 years with the indoctrination that they are capable of doing now through mass media and social media manipulation, I think they may have had a chance. But they wanted it so bad, they just couldn't wait, right? They didn't have all their ducks in an order because there's still a lot of people like you and me that see everything that's going on. The emperor may have put clothes back on, but he was in such a rush, he put them on backwards. Oh, scary time. Dun dun dun. Scary, scary. Clementine Scott, an organ donation specialist nurse at Worcester Royal Hospital, was redeployed to the intensive care unit during the first wave, which for her meant separating from her 10-year-old son for 7 weeks. Again, putting that right, it's for the greater good. She had to separate from her child. Now, this wasn't because of the COVID, but they will. That's why you're going to start seeing little things like that. They didn't have to add that. There could have been a billion other things that they chose to add. But they added that. And everything that they do add, you have to pause, think, what was the reason? They could have said anything. Why did they choose that? They know there's going to be thousands and thousands of people, upon millions sometimes, depending on the outlet, reading these things. Every single word goes through a process. A number of people that all decide whether or not this meets the criteria of the propaganda bullshit that they are trying to feed you. They may add some things, they may take out some things, but by the final piece, the final revision, it's going to say exactly what they want it to say, word for word, every letter. With the virus, we had to adapt to a totally different way of working. I think any clinician who looked after a COVID patient found the loss of control a terrifying thing because you didn't know how the disease was going to go. Loss of control. Give up your rights. Give it up. But you need to do it because there's this scamdemic going on, and if you don't, it's going to keep going on. But there was a lot of camaraderie. We try to really put together and look after each other. To go back a second time is depressing and something people will struggle with. Yeah, I would say people will struggle with it, especially people that have, since the first wave, woken up and been like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? And then bam, right back into the next one, and now they're like, well, okay, I see. But it's a little too late, We are past the stage of where it's important to keep trying to wake people up. It's on them at this point. There's enough information that they could see if they just take the initiative and do a little digging their own. I mean, there's so many things that just don't add up. There's so many contradictory statements made by the same people that, you know, were once telling you to do this, now they're telling you don't do that, or they're telling you don't do that, now do this. And all of the ridiculousness and the tyranny across the globe because of this. It's really up to people at this point. Not saying that you shouldn't share the information, because it's always going to be key. Whether it is just us and not a single other person does awake, sharing information is key. Not only does it basically permanently solidify the ways in which we communicate, right? Because if they take down YouTube, we can no longer use it. Well, there's already a number of emails. You've been associating with a lot of different people. So it is important to be able to reach one another regardless, because we're always going to have to share information, and it's going to be more and more difficult to do so as we go deeper and deeper into this totalitarian takeover. But it's on people's own shoulders at this point, right? We did what we could, but it's action time now. I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Stay tuned for my next video, because it's going to be kind of interesting, I think. Just more of what the other side of this, really, right? Because on one side, they're playing this COVID-19 thing, and the whole other side is the divide and conquer. And both very powerful in swaying the masses to do things that they may not normally have done, get caught up in emotions, and they stir the pot. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to continually do it. So, got to draw attention to it at the very least, and hope people see it for what it is. And that's what I think we are here for, guys. So do your best at doing that. I know I'm going to continue to. I appreciate all the support I get. I really do. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this, it's one of the best little communities I've seen here on YouTube, period. You know, a lot of good channels have a subscriber base, and you know, I read and they're good, and they do a lot, and that's great. A lot of the people are the same. You know, we all share, but in particular, under this channel, that just really is one of the best communities, and I can't thank you guys enough for the things you do, the sharing of videos, the reposting of videos. Feel free to do what you want with my videos. You have 100% permission, and share, not just, I mean, whatever you choose to. Just get the information out there. There's a lot of people looking for it. So, to my new subs, thank you for the support. Hopefully you stick around. Have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good week. Have a good month. Have a good year. Much love. Peace. I'm out.